What's good, family? Coach Rush here with another edition of Riding with Rush. Today, the question was posed, how do I turn my offense into a continuous motion offense? And what do I think of the Princeton offense? Now, it was a multi-parter, right? So in a nutshell, let me give you the backstory for this question. This coach is looking to change the system that he runs offensively. He's considering running the Princeton. He wanted to know what I thought about the Princeton, and he also was curious, how much continuity do I run? How do we implement it? How do we teach it? And so on. And so I basically just told him, I don't know a ton about the Princeton, to be perfectly honest. I've seen it. I've seen a couple of coaches run it. I know what I've heard about it. I know what the talking heads say about it on ESPN, whatever, all of that. Some of the other coaching networks or coaches that I follow, I've heard what they said about it, but I've never really dived deep into the Princeton because it just didn't really feel like my type of vibe. So actually, that's kind of where I started with it. I know this guy personally. We played ball together throughout the years, real good friend of mine. And so I basically just told him, in a nutshell, if you feel like the Princeton offense is an offense that you would want to play in as a player, then it's probably a good offense for you to teach. But if you look at the Princeton offense and you say to yourself, I would hate to run this, or this would be complicated for me to learn, because that's the sentiment that I've heard about the Princeton, is that it's one of the most complex offenses to implement, to install, to teach, and so on. If you feel like it's something that you wouldn't want to run as a player, then you probably shouldn't run it as a coach. And my thinking behind that is just like, if you would enjoy it as a player, you're going to be able to understand the nuances of it better. You're also going to be able to teach the nuances of the offense better to your players to help them understand it, because inside of you, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's hard to teach something that's not inside of you. Again, it's not impossible. It's harder to teach something that's not inside of you, for obvious reasons, right? So to the second part of that, and then I began to break down. I have a transition offense. We like to play up tempo on my system because I like to play up tempo. So we have a transition offense that also doubles as a majority guard offense, half court set. If we have a ton of guards in there and not a lot of size, and we can take advantage of our speed and being able to play downhill, find shooters, all the stuff that comes with it, right? And then I said we have Peyton Manning, Tom Brady offense, right? So in our Peyton Manning, Tom Brady offense, doesn't matter what personnel we got on the floor, we can get anybody a look from this offensive set in their comfort zone, going according to their skill set, right? So this is the main offensive set that we run a lot of our quick hitters out of. We also have a continuity out of that. Mind you, our transition offense is a continuity as well. We can run some quick hitters out of that because, again, it doubles as a half-court offense for 3 to 4 guards on the floor. But then we also have what I call old man basketball offensive set. So if we got a more traditional lineup in the game, true to positional style basketball, or maybe you got guys where you maybe don't necessarily want everybody on the court handling the ball, we got an offense that can help guys get shots with minimal creation that they have to do on their own, for lack of a better way to put it, while I'm on the highway, right? So if you want guys to be able to get shots and not have to create for themselves, we run this offense. It's a continuity, of course, and there's also a ton of quick hitters we can run out of that as well. So I told him, look, this is how I run my offense. This is how I structure. I got 3 main offenses, right? I got our transition offense, which doubles as our main guard offensive set. I got our Peyton Manning, Tom Brady offense, where we can pick people apart, quick hitters there, pick a defense apart based off our strengths and their weaknesses. Then I got our more traditional style offensive set, where we can take advantage of that, right? I like to be adaptable. So I told him, I wouldn't advise you to run what I run or run what any other coach runs just because they run it, right? These are all offenses that resonate with me because of my skill set and what I bring to the table as a player. I would love to play in these type of offenses, right? I'm having a versatile skill set, being able to play multiple positions, being a Swiss Army knife on the basketball court. It helps me understand and get in the mindset of these different type of guys. this individual was a point guard, and he was a distributor, and he was a floor general. So I encouraged him, find an offense, right, that you'd be comfortable running in. And I've said that a few times now, right? But that's the main gist of it. To the other point of his question was like, do you have continuity? I was like, everything we do is a continuity. What I do is I teach concepts. We're a concepts-based offense, right? I teach concepts. Like, this is the set that we're going to run. And I teach my guys how to make decisions out of that set, which come from the basis of an AAU coach that I had, who basically was like, taught us how to make decisions, taught us how to have high basketball IQ on the floor. And so with those concepts, it's, instead of a basketball playbook, it's actually more structured like a football playbook. So for people that played football or follow football very closely, they'll understand my playbook quicker than guys who play basketball but don't play football generally. And so instead of a basketball playbook, it's more like a basketball tree with branches that says then that. If we start the offense with this action, then the rest of us respond in this nature. It's kind of read and react-ish, but not quite, right? But it's along those lines. So for my basketball brain, think read and react, but even a little bit of a more of that, right? And so this, then that, right? So we've got a lot of actions, and someone's playbook that you could look for to get an idea of what I'm talking about is UConn's Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley runs these play trees where it's almost like a play action in football. It's going to start like this, and we can go 10 different ways out of it from that. And you can either just run it and read it, or you can call something out specifically that we see and take advantage of it. And even deeper than that, you can be running the continuity mid-play. Say you see something and you just call it out mid-play and you just take advantage of that, right? And so it gets to a point where I teach my guys how to read it. What do you see on the floor? Who's on the floor? What's the personnel that's out there with you? Beyond even your own team, what is the opposition that you're facing? What kind of defense are they playing? Who has the mismatch, if there is one to be found? How can we exploit weaknesses in the defense? How can we avoid strengths of the defenses, right? So I then begin to teach my players how to think the game, right? Through a series of questioning, okay? And so this is how I build my continuity offense. It's not a cookie cutter continuity that says, we're going to run our weave at the top of the key. No, it's going to be, okay, we start with a post entry that's going to trigger. So we have trigger in our offense that triggers certain actions. If this, then that. And so that is how, in a nutshell, I structure my continuity offenses. This is probably something that I would have to create a video on specifically how to do. But the way I learned to do this was happenstance. So I was an assistant coach to a freshman coach in my early coaching days. And he had this weird drill that he would teach the kids how to do once the playbook was installed, where he would stack plays. And what he would do, and at first, I didn't get the point of it, right? And that's neither here nor there. At first, I didn't get the point. I'll leave it at that. First, I didn't get the point. He would say, we're going to run this play, then that play, then that play. Before you know it, they'd be running 11 plays back to back. To this day, it's the most abstract thing I've ever seen in basketball, in a basketball practice type environment, right? And we never ran it in a game. It was more so a way for them to memorize the plays. But what I thought was cool about it, and what really stuck out about it to me, is he learned how to teach the players how to run every single play in the playbook out of a certain set without having to stop, right? And it's a weird thing to think about. It's something that you would honestly have to see. But the point of all of that is, what I took from it was like, yo, you could really build a continuity out of this. And having 11 plays stacked up on top of each other is really confusing. But if you had 3 or 4, right? And instead of calling them plays, you called them options. So what I did, and you can Google this, what I did is I latched on to horns at the time, right? For whatever reason, latched on to horns. And it's like a year or two later. I latched on to horns, and I was looking for a continuity set out of horns. And I couldn't find one. Doesn't exist. There is no horns motion on the market. So what I did is I remembered that concept that I learned from that coach of stacking plays, right? Weird. And what ended up happening is I took 6 very basic plays from the horn set that all you could stack and tie in together where they all did the same thing. And then I said, well, how do I reset this? And then I took a play that was very similar to the way that we start the play, the continuity, and we have to end it that way. And what I ended up doing is I ended up tying 6 plays together that all become options in the continuity. So now to this day, what I do is I teach the horns motion. Again, you Google, you can YouTube this. There is one horns motion on the internet, and I'm the one who made it. You Google it, there's no playbooks, there's none. There's only a YouTube video that I created when I was a JV coach, and it's for horns motion. So anyway, you can YouTube it, whatever, horns motion. Should be on my channel somewhere if you look down in there. If not, comment and I'll tag you in it. So I tied those 6 plays together. To this day, I do this. And the way that I teach it is I will teach the continuity first, right? And I don't tell the kids what I'm doing. I just say, hey, this is our horns motion. Boom, we're going to run it. And then I ask them, all right, who can tell me how many plays I just taught them? And clockwork, doesn't matter. If you've never played for me, clockwork, you'll go 1. And if you're thinking, you'll go maybe 3, right? And I said, no, I taught you guys 6 plays. And they go, and I said, let's break it down. And then I walk them through each one of the 6 sets. And I teach them this in 10 minutes. And from that point, a light bulb goes off. And they've learned 6 plays in 10 minutes and it's locked in. And so I told him, this is how I teach my continuities. This is how I develop my continuities. And I have continuities out of 3 or 4 different sets that we run. Even our zone busters become continuities that have a few different options in them that we can call out on the fly. We can take advantage of lapses in the defense. And we become hard to predict because what we're essentially doing is reading the defense and understanding where the openings are and taking what they give us, right? And that's what makes us hard to game plan for. You can know the plays, right? But at the end of the day, we're not developing robots. We're developing guys that can think the game. And so they're reading, they're reacting, they're taking advantage, they're running a play or a concept, and it has triggers. And that trigger can lead you down 3 different pathways, which again, if you watch Dan Hurley and how he organizes his offense, you might have some zoom action. That zoom action may have, literally with Dan Hurley, 20 different ways, it might have 20 different ways that play ends. It's almost next to impossible to game plan and predict what Dan Hurley's going to do based off of the beginning action of a play or a set that they might run, because it could morph into anything at any given time. And I've taken that concept and I've utilized it to the degree of the level of the basketball IQ of the players that I have. So in essence, I've taken that concept and I've scaled it back to the understanding of my guys. The higher the IQ, the higher the level of execution that we can do, and the different types of sets and plays and all the different options that we can run out of it. Obviously, I don't have UConn level players, so we can't break off into 20 different options. And to be honest, I'm not sure that I would want to, right? However, we can break a specific opening of a set into 3 or 4 different things to where it becomes hard to predict what we're about to do, because we're literally reading based off this action. What's the defense giving us? That's what we're going to take. So, in a nutshell, fellas, 20 minutes later, and in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, this is how I develop continuity offenses. I don't do cookie cutter. So from year in and year out, my quick hitters may be different based off the talent that we have, based off of our strengths, based off of our weaknesses. And I feel like, in all honesty, I can create a continuity out of any offensive style, any offensive set. I just chose the ones that resonate with me the most as a player. And ideally, what type of offense would I like to run as a player in that skill set, and what type of coach would I want to play for? That's what I strive to be. All right. So I appreciate y'all. Hit the subscribe button. If you got questions, if some of this didn't make sense, because I know I kind of drifted off at a couple of points in here, go ahead, comment below, message me, whatever. I love tapping in with you guys. I love answering your questions. Subscribe, share. See y'all later. Peace.